This podcast is part of the Game and Entertainment Network. Visit tgenetwork.net to find the latest episodes from all our shows.
It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 121. Tonight, I'm joined by Ashgar.
Hello.
Godra.
Hi.
Tam.
Hello.
And Thalen.
Hey.
We are down a grace, because reasons. We are also not going to be talking about The Witness tonight, for also reasons. So, instead, we are doing a normal show, and the game of the month will be rescheduled for another time?
Yes,
probably in a couple weeks.
We will talk about The Witness.
We have
things to say.
But that said, why don't we quickly talk about what our next game of the month is? Because we're going to start playing it.
All right, we can do that. The game for the month of September is one of the oldest of roguelikes that, you can actually still play. It is Tales of Maj'eyal, which is almost older than me. The game it's based on is almost older than me.
I was going to say, that's been around a long, long time.
It's been around a long time.
And gone through at least one name change.
It was originally Tales of Middle-earth.
This is the game that you were trying to get me to stream for Child's Play that one time.
I almost got you to stream this
And I have it, and I've looked on it with, some amount of dread and horror. All right.
So the reason I picked this instead of actual Nethack, which is also on Steam, is because this is almost as old as those games. It is, first, it has a relatively modern interface. You can actually, interact with things with the mouse if you so choose to.
Okay, back up a moment. Nethack is on Steam?
Yes.
Culture for Nethack is on Steam, so therefore Nethack is on Steam.
A version of Nethack is on Steam.
Okay. So that, I was going to say,
Not the one running on a mainframe.
I was going to say, I just telnet to nethack.org and...
Tales of Maj'eyal is open source and therefore also actually free if you decide to visit its website. But if you pay for it, you can get access to the We Recognize Some People Don't Like Roguelikes mode.
Interesting.
I feel like buying it off of Steam is the easy option, so I'll probably buy it off of Steam.
Definitely the easy option.
Even as a 4-pack.
I mean, heck, it's pretty cheap. I'm happy to throw the makers of a roguelike some cash.
But yeah, it has a relatively modern interface, and it is somewhat more fair, I guess I want to say. You will never encounter a cursed amulet of choking.
Gnome with a wand of death.
No gnome with a wand of death. But by the same token, there's also no amulet of life saving. You have to use your ability to figure your way out of the trouble you find yourself in.
This would be
I think
interesting.
It'd be kind of interesting, because our only previous roguelike experience for the game of the month was Darkest Dungeon.
Did we not do Rogue Legacy as a game of the month, or did we just all spontaneously play it at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay. For whatever reason, in my head, I had Rogue Legacy as a game we had done.
Nope.
I think that predates the concept of the game club.
It does.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
Do we want any of the DLC? Why not?
Might as well.
You don't really have to. One of them adds some things to the base game. One of them is another campaign. The second one.
Interesting.
It is more similar to Risk of Rain than Rogue Legacy in that you unlock more options as you play through the game, not necessarily more power.
Okay. Although, admittedly, Risk of Rain kind of has a power waterfall thing going on, where you get exponentially more powerful as the game continues.
Well, as you...
More referring to...
the levels.
Right, as you level up.
Not at the start, you're always level 1.
Yeah.
You just get a choice of classes eventually, and occasionally more items available. This is similar.
Well, the thing with Rogue Legacy is, to me, I feel like I'm just playing one game. I don't consider every time I restart a character to be a new game. It's just a continuation of the game I started ages ago.
Yeah, this is really not like that.
Yeah. So, since this appears to be the era of everything from the 90s coming back, with Crystal Pepsi and the convenience stores, it feels like you guys are recycling the 90s too in your pen and paper campaign?
Apparently so.
Maybe a little bit.
Apparently it is 1996 because I am going to play in a vampire game. What the hell?
But Are you
Second
on
edition was
IRC
published in,
role
like,
playing
2014.
your vampire character?
We're in Slack. Does that count?
That counts. I may or may not have done, vampire roleplay on IRC.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to be using Roll20, which is basically, the
That's freaking
updated
awesome,
thing.
though. The only problem is you guys are doing Requiem, right? Not Masquerade.
Yeah.
Why is that a problem?
Yeah,
I
we're
just
using
don't like the
I'm really
Requiem
not saying
setting.
that's a problem.
Like the Requiem system is awesome. The changes to the rules are awesome. I just don't like the changes they made to the setting in Requiem.
There's so much I'm having to unlearn about the whole, the clans and their disciplines and all of this stuff, because some of them don't exist anymore or are bloodlines of other things. It's all strange.
So this is my first vampire game, basically. I think I played in a one-shot that Tam ran, but I was not really clear what was going on.
I didn't actually run that.
What?
I wasn't the one running that.
Oh, okay. Anyways, what I will say about the Requiem is I feel like the 5 clans really match up in my head with the 5 types of vampires. And if I feel like there's anything that is currently missing, it's the fact that the Japanese mythological or Chinese mythological vampires are not represented right now.
Well, they were a whole
book for
separate
that.
thing in the and that's how it was in the
Kindred
old
of
setting, too.
Asia or whatever.
Kindred of the East.
There you go.
Okay.
They have it's a separate book because they really they do a very different cultural thing with them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But you have the Devas, which are the seductive sexual vampires.
Yep.
You have the Ventru, which are the vampire lords, like Dracula.
They are
You
vampire
have-
business people.
Sure, but vampire
they also
lords
cover-
is how they would
yes.
self-style themselves. As somebody who's playing a vampire, Ventru in this game, he definitely considers himself a bit of a lord, a noble. The Gangrel, which are the transforming, very powerful vampires. The Nosferatu, which are the horrifying vampires, and the Mekhet, which are the sneaky vampires of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Previously followers of Set.
Yep. Along with some other stuff too that got bundled into the Mekhet, but they most directly feel like they come out of the Setites. Yeah.
But it all these are 5 archetypes of vampire I've seen typically in different stories, because most stories follow one type of vampire, but in the Worlds of Darkness all 5 of the vampires are represented.
See, and the problem I have with this is in the world where there were a ton of bloodlines, there was a lot of lore associated with each individual family, for lack of a better name for it.
Yeah, basically.
And that all got flattened into archetypal vampires. So from a standpoint of someone figuring out what they want to play, this probably works a hell of a lot better. But at the time, I was super into the lore of the different clans, and that's largely gone.
It's not gone.
It's not gone.
It's in other books.
It's all bloodlines
Yeah.
now. And if you look up, if you just search for Vampire the Requiem bloodlines on Google, there are so many.
There's more than there originally were clans.
Oh, by far.
Well, back in the day, there was a website called Abe Deshale's World of Darkness page. And it was this cool, it was basically this fanfic page of all these different bloodlines that people made up. Some of which were horrible and broken, but some of which were really cool.
Yeah, Onyx Path jumped on that train.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's bloodlines for everything. Do you want to be a vampire that can travel through mirrors? There's a bloodline for that. Do you want to be a vampire Freemason? There's a bloodline for that.
Yeah,
Wait,
it's sort of
there is?
interesting. Yeah,
Yes.
there is. It's interesting because I learned vampire on Masquerade, and I think that setting wise, not character, ignore characters. Setting wise, I think Masquerade is better. And frankly, I'm the DM. We're going to be working with the Masquerade setting.
Yay.
There's just a bunch of social structures that make more sense, and they're more formalized.
The Camarilla made sense to me.
Yeah, there's no reason not to use that structure. But what's interesting is that like they kind of I sort of feel like the new clans, I feel like people would have been a lot less like twitchy about the whole thing if they just called the new supposed clans what they actually were,
Archetypes, yeah.
which is just an archetype.
Right,
And
and that's my
like-
key problem with it.
Yeah.
Is if they had not muddied the water and said, okay, so instead of calling this Ventru, these are vampire lords, basically the definition the coach just gave, and called it an archetype, then you could still have Ventru be what they've always been, Tremere be what they've always been.
They've sort of gotten rid of Tremere.
Tremere picked a fight with some mages. It did not go well for them.
Blood magic is no longer a thing.
Blood magic.
That's not true.
Blood magic is a thing, but it's much more limited.
Yeah. You can't do most of the crazy Tremere shit
There isn't a single discipline that is just, hey, here's all of the magic, which is probably better, frankly.
There is, there's the clan, which is more like an archetype. And then there's the Covenant, which is an alternate, decision point.
It's basically Camarilla Sabbat type thing. It's an organization that you are a member of by choice.
But that is how you get access to magic. Some of those have access to magic.
Yeah.
But none of the magic is, set people on fire or make myself a lower generation just, by muttering at myself.
Make the other vampire's blood boil.
You can still do that, but it's not anywhere near as awful.
I was about to say, that exists.
It just removes some vitae from them.
I was about to say, you also have to go down a really dark path.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, the crone is not necessarily for good vampires.
True. Yeah,
I don't know that any of them are necessarily for good vampires.
I was gonna say.
This is Vampire we're playing, not, Happy Sunshine Land.
See, okay, so this is, and maybe it's already going off the rails, but the thing when we were talking about we want to play a game, Tam asked me what type of game you do want to play, and my comment was I want to play a heroic game.
We can totally be heroic, but we're doing it in spite of what we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're the lesser of evils, essentially, in that scenario.
And I have played in a lot of games with Tam where we've been very mercenary, but it's been a while since we played a game where we were heroic, where we were fighting for a cause. And that's sort of where the setting comes from, is there are some mortals that we are looking after.
Yeah, that's something that I really, really like about the new setting, is the whole touchstone system and the various things that they did to make it very important for gameplay reasons, in addition to story reasons, to interact with humans in a human way and try and hold on to who you were.
Yeah, it's really, I find that really, really cool. And the thing is if you want to play it, it's do you want to play a game where you're heroic? I mean, I see a couple of different ways to do that. You could sort of be the wandering heroic adventurers in D&D, but you're also, I've never really found that as super heroic. You're murder hobos. You're homeless people wandering around killing stuff and incidentally making people happy as a result.
But I like being a murder hobo.
And it's a perfectly fine game, but there's nothing really heroic about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, your true goal is they might have magic items. We want those.
Yeah.
Treasure?
Exactly. It devolves into this treasure thing. And so sort of looking at other things, it's okay, I could do a superhero team, but frankly, I don't actually like superheroes all that much. And that's a game that gets silly really quick. Superhero games, superhero RPG, tabletop RPGs get silly real fast.
They don't have to.
Well, I mean, in a vampire setting, there's enough things worse than the vampires to totally make you heroic in saving the day. The Sabbat.
Pretty much every other supernatural thing is scarier than a vampire one-on-one.
Well, I mean, the Sabbat alone kind of wanted to create a vampire race war and subjugate humanity as a result. So, I mean, that's not good. That's definitely something you don't want to happen.
Yeah, but more like, hey, so the idea is like, hey, this is our neighborhood. These are our people. We look after them. We try and make their lives better. That's at least that's what my character's motivation is, like, because the backstory is something happened. We're not really sure what, but like we are some of the only vampires left in the Seattle metro area. And we only managed to survive because the mortals of our neighborhood took care of us.
And I think, like, in Masquerade, the Ventru had a really close connection with ancestors in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I think is sort of fun about it is it's like I feel like being heroic in World of Darkness is meaningful because it is 100% legitimate not to be.
Yeah, because you actively have to work to be heroic and work against what would be much easier in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's like
both in and out of character.
Yeah, it isn't easy. It's more interesting to be heroic because it's not easy. It isn't like, oh, well, we're really good at killing things, so we're going to go into this cave and kill this thing that the villagers want us to kill and collect riches.
The other setting I thought would be good for this for this type of a thing would be a Shadowrun setting where you're like looking after a neighborhood as well. Because Shadowrun is also a game that tends to devolve into like us doing bigger and bigger missions for like personal gain.
Mm-hmm.
But like my favorite part of all of the Shadowrun RPGs that Harebrained Schemes put out was going around and like taking care of problems for your neighbors.
Yeah, the stuff in Dragonfall.
Yeah.
Like you got to be the like local like everyone turned to you whenever there's a problem. And I loved that. I thought that was great in those games.
Well, and in that game too, I loved the aspect of it felt like you were fixing not only the neighborhood, but you were also fixing your party. Like you were resolving conflicts that had been there for years, you know, deep down in a lot of the characters that you were grouped with as well.
One of the things that incidentally, one of the things that I think is really interesting with Requiem that doesn't exist in Masquerade is that like actual redemption is possible in Requiem, whereas it never was in Masquerade.
No.
Like you knew off the bat that you were irredeemably an undead creature. And Requiem changes that. And it's not easy, but it's possible. And so there's that it adds hope for a particular it adds that choice that's like I either have hope that I can, you know, escape this fate, or I can come to terms with it because I know that there's this path that exists.
So it sounds like a lot of what's going on is some of the reasons why I liked Werewolf the Apocalypse so much more than Vampire the Masquerade once it came out is because in Werewolf you could absolutely be the good guy. Like you could be universally the good guy. You were doing good in the world.
Yeah, and I feel like all of the New World of Darkness stuff has shifted more closer to that, where it's like, I mean, as a vampire, you can legitimately play a vampire who just like isn't even really a bad person. It's just like, okay, yes, you do have to drink.
Still gotta eat.
Like, sure, you still have to eat, but like.
But there are ways to get around that.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like on the grand scheme of things, you can do a lot more good than harm.
Consensual feeding has to be a thing.
Yeah,
it can totally be a thing.
Well, and if your blood potency isn't too high, you can drink from animals.
Yep.
I did consider making a vampire farmer.
But also because, you know, very 90s, it's set in Seattle.
Vampire the Masquerade was the sort of game that you couldn't really play without an industrial music soundtrack.
Yeah, this
One
might
of the
be
things I actually think is kind of interesting is that I didn't know prior to 2 days ago that Path decided that they want to keep both game lines updated, and so renamed New World of Darkness into Chronicles of Darkness.
Did not realize that either.
Like I knew that they'd been publishing. I know they published a new edition of Vampire the Masquerade not too long ago,
And sadly, the Humble Bundle version wasn't that version.
Aw.
Yeah.
Oh?
Yeah, I think it's the original stuff on that Humble Bundle version of Vampire.
Yeah, the Humble Bundle was like...
Well, it's revised, but that
PDFs
was from late 90s.
Of everything revised, yeah. But it was like all of it, all the old Clan Splat books, and yeah.
That started coming out like 96, 98-ish or so, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
There's a weird version of Vampire the Masquerade that came out for the D20 system, but it is kind of super hard to find.
I would also, consider that to be fairly weird.
Well, everything came out for D20.
Yeah. I think that was probably during the era when White Wolf was literally throwing anything at the wall and trying to make something stick that would make some money.
Yeah, because they also released a number of books actively specifically meant as D&D books when Third Ed came out.
Some of that stuff was actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I have a couple of them.
I forget was it Savage Lands, maybe?
Was that theirs? That was some other company.
I'm trying to remember. Like, I have several different of these third-party lines that were actually fairly good. God, I don't remember which one was theirs. They had a good bestiary, and that was the one I used the most.
Yeah,
because they had some really interesting types of critters.
Yeah, it was the Sword and Sorcery imprint.
Okay.
It was. Yeah, it was the stuff that they published under, and they published it as Sword and Sorcery Studios.
I know they had setting books, but like I never really picked those up. I just picked up their bestiary books and their gods book and
Yeah, I picked up both of those. And Scarred Lands was their D20 setting.
That's what it was, not Savage Lands, Scarred Lands. I know it was something like that. So when I was in Albany a few years back, I stopped into a shop up there, and it was like a wasteland of previous D20 stuff. And there was so much stuff I didn't even remember getting released, but like apparently they had sunk heavily into D20 stuff at one point, and they had all of this like hundreds and hundreds of imprints selling stuff for the D20 line.
There's like every single RPG publisher did something for D20, and a lot of it was not great.
The D20 Cthulhu was mostly good because you could use things out of it with, another campaign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Creature Collection, I think that was the first thing they put out for D20, and I have a copy of that, and it was pretty good.
So another thing going on this week is the beginning of the 3rd anniversary Rising event in Final Fantasy XIV.
Yep, it started today, I think.
Yeah, because like yesterday was the last day of the previous event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird to think that the game has been going in its relaunched state for 3 years now.
So how long is the content for this event?
It's pretty short. I logged in after, this afternoon around 2 or 3, and I think like within an hour I had finished it all. Basically involves, there is a puppet group, like puppeteers, that are wanting to do a stage play about the Cataclysm, and they want your help, like getting stories about the Cataclysm to help their main actor, who is going to be portraying the Warrior of Light in his role.
And is the main actor Yoshi P?
No, the main actor is Alalafell.
Yoshi P is the bard, because Yoshi P is always the bard.
Yes, Yoshi P is the minstrel. But it's a play that it was written for them by like someone who you don't know who wrote it for them, but they think it's brilliant, and they want your help. And then it like the person that's going to portray the Warrior of Light ends up in an accident and can't go on, and so they need somebody to go on in his place.
So the Warrior of Light is portraying the Warrior of Light?
Yes.
Super meta.
And the stage play is incredibly entertaining and hilarious because every character other than the Warrior of Light is puppets, and it's a portrayal of the fight at Cartano, the Battle of Cartano.
Wow.
So there's like puppet Dalamud.
That's hilarious.
And that bursts open to reveal puppet Bahamut, which is adorable. So it's a lot of fun.
I will have to go check this out.
And after completing it, you get an orchestrion role for the Heaven's Ward theme, and you get a couple of new minions, which are Wind Up Kryl and Wind Up Y'shtola. So, well worth it.
And now, are the outfits for Ishtola and Kryl available in-game, or are those on-store optional items?
I think it must be
Those are on the store.
items that you have to buy for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, it's not those. The ones they just added were Stola and Thancred's new outfits. I don't know if you can get a Kryl outfit.
I don't know. Like I've seen pictures of people dressed up like Kryl, so I don't know. Yeah, I heard something about the Ishtola outfit costing $15.
Like all the other outfits I have, yes.
Wow. Yeah.
That's not really something I'm terribly interested in.
Like, I don't mind their minions, because, like, yeah, sure, I'll happily plunk down $5 every now and then for a new minion. I don't care that much about the outfit.
And apparently the enormous feline ears attached to Kryl's hood are thought to represent her ability to hear the whispers of the soul.
And she's not a Beastmaster?
He was a white mage outfit originally.
And I gather maybe there's an existing wind-up Y'shtola in her old outfit, because this new one is dress-up Y'shtola and is in her new outfit.
Yeah, I have the existing wind-up Y'shtola, because it was one of the...
were on the store.
Yeah.
Exception, I think, is Minfilia, who was on the Rising first year.
Yeah.
Yep. And Thancred was also from the Rising.
Yeah, year 2, I think. Either that or those two were in the same year. I don't remember.
Last year was Yugiri and what's her name? Iceheart.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's going to top last year's Rising.
Yeah, this does not break.
Probably not going to
break
get
the fourth wall
another developer's
like last
room.
year.
Yeah.
No.
That dev room was amazing.
It really was, but probably won't see that again soon.
Yeah. Maybe at 5 years, I don't know.
So another big thing that came out this week was Deus Ex Mankind Divided.
So excited.
A lot of people are.
This game is... So, okay. I've played a few hours of this game, and it's great. Like, it's dark. Like, it takes place after the first game. Like, it takes place after Human Revolution, so it's dark.
Sure.
Because an event that happened in Human Revolution that was super bad has turned in Human Revolution, one of the big climactic moment of the game, or one of the big climactic moments of the game is the bad guys, like the Illuminati or whoever, basically upload a virus that makes everybody with augmentations freak out. And in all sorts of ways, like some people go psychotic and start killing people, some people just
cyber psychosis.
Yeah.
Yay.
It's a cyber psychosis thing. It happens, and it's broadcast over satellite, so it affects a whole lot of people in a really short period of time.
Some people temporarily lose their ability to see straight, and if I recall correctly, their inability to shoot guns. And I actually didn't do this, but there's a way to really get yourself hosed if you take the wrong path in that game, because you can get affected by this at a very difficult boss fight.
Yeah.
So things are bad?
Well, so let's say a subset of the population goes dangerously crazy all of a sudden. What do you suppose would be the aftermath of that?
You have the Mutant Registration Act all over again.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Let's break out the Sentinels.
Welcome to Mankind Divided. If you thought people were said disparaging things about people with augmentations in Human Revolution, get ready. And it makes sense. It's it makes sense in all of these interesting ways, especially because it puts a lot of context into the original game. It weaves surprisingly well into the original game, where the couple of old augmented people that you run into in that game are really bitter.
Mm-hmm.
Just super, super bitter.
Gunter and Anna.
Yeah, they're incredibly bitter about the whole situation. And it makes them as characters make a lot more sense retroactively, which I think is really clever in this thing, because it's wow, it would really suck to live through this. Everyone in the world thinks that you're a monster waiting to happen, a disaster waiting to happen.
Huh. Well, I am downloading it right now, so I'm probably going to play a lot of it this week.
And yeah, it's really like it's interesting. I'm sort of curious like where the story goes, because I kind of don't feel like Adam Jensen makes sense as a character for this game, frankly. But I mean it's a kind of minor quibble. But I also haven't played, despite it coming out, despite me being super excited about it, I also haven't played very much of it. Because I noticed I basically got to the point where I could start using Praxis, which is your level up system. And there's a bit in the menu where it says redeem bonus Praxis. And I was like, redeem bonus Praxis? I wonder if I have any of that, because I would like more of these points. There's a lot of things that I really want, and even though they start you out with a whole bunch of it, because you brought it over from the last game, presumably, I still don't have all that I want. And apparently you can get Praxis in Mankind Divided by playing their mobile game.
How convenient.
Yeah, right? And I was like, okay, I'm skeptical about this cash grab. Like, this feels like a cash grab. Like, so I look it up, and it's like, oh, this is very well reviewed. All right, pick it up and give it a try. And it's Deus Ex Go, mobile game. It's a really, really clever turn-based puzzle game. Like, you've got these levels that are laid out in various ways, and you have to make your way through them. Each one is a little mini puzzle. And they, like, every time you move from one node to the next in the puzzle, anything that moves in the puzzle also moves.
Okay, so it's Deus Ex Go, not Deus Ex The Fall.
No, it's Deus Ex Go.
So
Okay.
I wonder, like, I know they have Hitman Go and Tomb Raider Go. Do they serve the same functionality in their games?
I think so. I'm not actually familiar with Hitman Go or Tomb Raider Go. I mean, I've seen the...
Well, I just know they exist. Like, that's literally all I know about them.
I have no idea. But, like, I'll be totally honest, this was a thing I saw in the game and was like, I kind of want more Praxis. I wonder what this game is like. And I got to the point where I was like, I want to beat... Because you unlock some of it by beating the game, and you unlock other parts of it. Basically, the more completely you beat the mobile game, the more Praxis you get. And you can redeem it at any time, so I wanted to have at least some.
Sounds a lot like you got distracted by Triple Triad.
Basically, yeah. Like,
Hearts for cards, baby.
And happily, like, it was really neat. Like, okay, I'm not playing this game that I'm super excited about because I'm doing this other thing that I want to finish before I go and do that, but it's also extending the life of this game, because otherwise I would have booted this up on Tuesday and beaten it by Wednesday, frankly. And instead, I've dabbled in it a little bit. I played this other thing. I've gotten more into it over a period of time. I will say that the mobile game makes my phone really hot and burns through the battery, but
yeah, Pokemon Go does that for me.
Yeah, so there's that.
Clearly, it's time for a new phone.
But yeah, it's really interesting, and I kind of want to. The one complaint I have with Mankind Divided thus far, other than like the weirdness about being it, and it sort of ties into the weirdness of being Jensen, is I haven't met characters that I really just love yet. Whereas the original really introduced me to characters I love immediately, or at least characters that I get and like immediately. But yeah, like I finally beat the mobile game like earlier this afternoon, and I'm excited to redeem my prizes and give the rest of the game a shot.
That's honestly like one of the things that I've not seen many games do really well is have a mobile integration that feels meaningful and not just like the mobile equivalent of a scratch-off card.
Yeah. Or like silly mini games that don't have any real effect or meaning.
Like the thing that I always said would make whatever company did it just like super popular was in an MMO, what is the most tedious task ever? Fishing. Like if someone
Organizing your items.
Well, organizing your items,
inventory management.
Like if you could do inventory management, that would be amazing. But like if you could do fishing from a mobile phone, I kind of think that would be amazing because, like, that's the sort of thing that I would do while doing something else, knowing that it would eventually benefit me. But I feel like most companies just haven't quite figured out what to do with the mobile space because...
Yeah, I really like it as an adjunct to AAA stuff. I've generally been kind of down on like the whole tie-in, but I like it in this sense. It's like, okay, no, I don't. I really, really do not need Praxis. Like, I can get that by playing the game, and I'll be just fine. But I want it, so I'll try your game. And if your game sucked, if your game sucked, I would leave it. I'd be like, nope, this isn't worth it. But it's a fun and compelling little game, and totally worth it.
So Kodra,
Yeah.
you're watching a couple anime.
Tam and I are.
Tell us
Yeah.
about them.
So we've been watching 2 anime from the current season, which you can watch on Crunchyroll. Sweetness and Lightning, which is a cute cooking anime with like a teacher who is also a single father wanting to cook good food for his daughter because like she seems to miss well-cooked meals. Like that's sort of the impression he is getting, and like he is trying to like be a good single father but doesn't know how to cook. And it takes place with this high school student of his whose mother owns a restaurant, but she is also not a very good cook, so it's a pair of people who don't know really how to cook trying to cook some of the most basic Japanese staples.
Okay, that actually sounds like something I might enjoy.
It's really charming and fun.
It's really charming and fun. But
it's a small group of really hopeless, it's like just laughably hopeless people trying to cook.
Like the initial one is like just pot rice. Like, can we figure out how to make pot rice? And then like pot rice with pork soup. And then like they keep saying in the first couple of episodes that she really wants hamburger steak, which is also a pretty basic Japanese staple, but neither of them are skilled enough to make that, and they need to work their way up to it.
The hamburger steak.
Yes.
Yes, it is. And the cheesy hamburger.
Yup. That they have not gotten to, although I want to... Did they do... they did a gratin in one of the episodes. There were a couple episodes behind, because I've been watching it... We've been watching it with my wife, and my wife has a lot less time recently. And the other one we've been watching is New Game. And New Game's real fun to watch with Tam.
New Game is like, so the premise is girl just out of school gets a job at a game studio. And you're like, okay. At least if you're me, you're like, okay, here we go. Especially when you discover that the entire cast is female. I'm like, all right, here we go. What am I watching, Kodra? But what it is it's like this. It's this candy-coated pseudo-documentary about working in games, told from the view of the like bright, starry-eyed newcomer, and like watching that change over time.
Wow.
Like she comes in on her first day and finds her boss sleeping under her cubicle.
Yeah, like her boss's like character quirk is she regularly sleeps under her desk.
Under her own desk or under the worker's desk?
Like
under her own desk.
She works so late regularly enough that she just sleeps under her desk. And it's got this like and her boss's training is, here's a book, see about learning it.
No, it's like, she's like, oh, do you know any 3D? And she's like, well, I know a lot about drawing 2D art. And she's like, here's a book on Autodesk, and I believe in the show it's called Saya. Autodesk Saya. Read this book and come back to do the exercises, come back to me, and we'll see how you're doing.
There's your employee training.
Yeah.
P.S. like 6 or 7 episodes later, she gets a visit from the tech director who's like, all of your stuff is full of errors. Did no one teach you how to do this properly? Oh.
Nope.
No one taught you how to do this properly. Yeah, it's like, that's why I keep calling it a documentary. It's like this candy-coated documentary, but it's distressingly apt.
Yeah, the whole thing of, does anybody know this? Well, I've heard of that. Gratch, you're the expert now.
Yeah. I mean, and it's
a little too much reality in that.
Yeah, that's not happened at work.
It's down to like weird little details too. Like they're the art team, and like one of the animators sits with them because there wasn't space with the other animators. And like she's not really a part of the team, but she kind of is because she sits with them.
Because that's how cube layouts are. Like
it's this weirdly like hyper accurate attention to detail in this. I mean, it's a charming show with charming characters, and there's a little bit of like, this is how business is done in Japan versus America differences that I'm like, But I've yet to run into anything that's like, this isn't actually what this would be like.
Yeah, I see episode 2 is about going out drinking with her coworkers.
Yeah.
Yes.
I bet
Episode
that's
2 is
entertaining.
about drinking.
And like people drinking unhealthily.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And there's other little subtle things like, oh, everybody leaves for work for the day. It's 22:30.
Yeah, like the earliest I've seen that group leave was 7:30.
No. The tech director was like, hey, it's almost the end of the day at 7:30.
That's right. The tech director was allowed to leave at 7:30.
Yeah.
Everyone else leaves at like 9 o'clock.
Or later.
And like the other thing is, it starts with like, oh yeah, I can see you like Saturday or Sunday, to, oh yeah, I could see you Sunday, to, I don't think I'm going to have a day off this week.
Yeah, it's also got her her like college student friend who's really excited, who's like thinks it's really cool that her friend is working in games, and hey, you should tell me all about it when we hang out during summer break.
Yeah. I did like the first thing in the first episode is like, all right, I'm an adult now. I'm going to go to this job and be a responsible adult in a professional environment. And like open to a bunch of cubicles with like swords hanging on the wall, a bunch of cubicles with all of these toys around them, and this woman sleeping under her desk.
Yeah.
It's like, games! Not really the most professional of environments.
But it also, at the same time, it also hits all of the like why people do this and why it's fun.
Yes.
Notes really, really well. Like I never feel like I can adequately convey the joys of working in games, other than to say like it's really about the people. But like this really, the show really like hits that. It's really interesting.
It'll be interesting, I guess, for me to see if they adequately model the emotional trauma of shipping a product and watching people that were super excited about your game flip to hating your game.
That's what I'm going to be really interested in. because
that's the thing.
They're still like unannounced.
Yeah.
But there's
also, we're coming to the end of the season, so I don't know if they're going to ship the game by the end of this season. I hope they get a second.
Yeah.
There was a line in the most recent episode that was like, they were talking about all of the extra work they did, and the line was, "It'll be worth it if the game is good." And I feel like that is
it's the main character saying it.
Yeah. It's a really fun show. Like, it's worth watching, just because it gives you... It does this thing where it's, like, cheerful and upbeat, and also isn't shying away from what working in games is actually like.
Yeah, it's really, really neat.
I just wonder if there's going to be a point in this game, or this anime, where it maybe hits too close to home.
So... what I find interesting is that I've kept watching, like I've been having fun watching it, despite how right it gets everything, I guess.
Well, it seems like it's something where the creator of the show is like, yeah, this is what it's like, but it's still a good place to work.
Yeah, it's like it isn't a like working in games is not a nightmare hellscape. It's just that it is way easier to articulate what doesn't work than what does. Like it's much easier to articulate what the like concrete things that are problematic than it is to communicate like, sure, it's problematic, but is it still worth it? And why? Like, I kind of secretly hope that their project gets canceled, because that's a whole interesting arc.
Season from now, it would probably be them announcing if they haven't done that yet.
Yeah, there's a bunch of pieces of the game development cycle that, yeah, like it's like, sure, you get layoffs happen and people all lose their jobs and so on, and that's awful. But the part about that you never hear is game devs, more than anyone else I've ever seen, will go out of their way to help other game devs find jobs without a second thought. Like there are people, like I'm job hunting now, and there are people who I spoke to like twice ever who I can reach out to, and they're like, oh yeah, let me put you in contact with these 3 people, and I'll pass your resume on to these people, and I'll write a recommendation for you. Yeah, I totally got your back. Because it's this like shared experience, and that's just the culture. And it's like, sure, it comes out of this terrible thing that happens, but it's also supportive. It's like genuinely supportive and well-meaning in a way that doesn't exist elsewhere. It's super alien to me when people talk about like, I don't have any coworker friends. Like, coworker friends are weird. I don't hang out with my coworkers because I can't imagine not doing that.
Well, I hang out with my coworkers, but like this is one of 2 environments where that's ever happened.
Yeah.
And I've been in a lot of environments. And I think like back to what you were saying about the whole the army of people looking for these game devs jobs, whenever, there's a massive layoff. It's like, I think game development is the only industry that I can think of off the top of my head where unemployment is just assumed to be part of life. Like, it's going to happen. Like, it happens every time a game ships. Like, I mean, contracting in general is that way, but you're on a short contract.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, okay, so I'm on a 6-month contract. Then fine. That's a 6-month contract. Game development seems to be like this whole other thing where you just know you're more than likely going to get laid off at whenever a game ships. Because that's the cycle of life in game development. And that's just so weird to me. Just how normal and accepted that is.
Yeah, but it also means that there's like social structures in place prepared for that. So it isn't like, 600 people got laid off at Intel, 550 of them have no idea what to do now. I mean, I guess one of the stories that I always tell to like explain what's wrong with the games industry is like my first job when we all got laid off. I remember hearing somebody in the hall saying, hey, can somebody help? Like, this is my first day. I just moved here. And that guy, I know that guy has a job. He had some people stop and chat with him, and he found a gig.
Yeah, wow, that would be
it's
terrifying.
Like, I tell the first half of that story because it's like, oh, wow, that's awful. Like, that's awful. Like, you just moved across the country. You probably incurred a bunch of debt in so doing. You've just signed a lease, possibly. Like, your first day on the job, everyone is fired.
The folks that I just marvel at are the folks that have made a family through all of these, cross-country moves and stuff, and, tried to keep some semblance in order and, make sure the kids are doing okay in school. And that's phenomenal to me that, that anyone can keep any sense of order in that type of environment.
Yeah, and people do. Oftentimes with the help of other people in the industry who know what's up. And it's that I think is really cool. I mean, like, it is about the people. If you value you have to love games to work in game development, but if you value people more than money, you can get pretty far as well. And it also means that there's a really deeply entrenched distaste for anyone who doesn't value people more than money in the industry. Like, people who leave the industry to take a better paying job elsewhere aren't looked down upon. It's when you are, because it isn't like valuing money over people. Like, everybody wants, like, people understand, like, we want money, but like, you're not hurting someone to do it, so that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think this is also, like, I feel fortunate that I've known this side of the picture, because I've had a surprising number of friends that worked in the games industry. And it's also why it's super hard for me to see when someone is attacking someone in the games industry, like actually attacking a person, not, like, it's okay to complain about something. Like, that's going to happen. I complain about stuff all the time. But complain about the game or complain about a company. Don't complain about a person. Because honestly, it's like, just from the outside looking in, it's this industry made up of all these extremely hardworking, caring people that want to put the best product out there. And just like I have reasons why I can't do everything the way I think it should be, there's reasons that get in the way of just reality. And it bothers me when someone makes personal attacks against someone in the industry, which is a whole other side conversation. But that also means that it might be time for a, but anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, new game is great.
Yes.
You should it's totally worth watching an episode or two and seeing if it, like, clicks with you.
Yeah, both of these sound like things that I want to watch, and I might actually be able to get my wife to watch Sweetness and Lightning with me, because she's only really interested in animes that take place in actual, like, real life Japan.
Yeah, which technically both of these do.
Yeah, well, and she's also, into Japanese food, so there's that too.
Yeah.
She's not so much into, the game industry.
Yeah.
We also watched an episode of Orange, and that mostly just led to I want to say, hour-long conversation about causality and whether or not we could manufacture a device that allows us to send messages into the past.
Yeah, we watched about 12 seconds of the show. Actually, no, we did eventually watch a full episode.
We did.
Yeah, we did eventually watch a full episode, but it took us like 2.5 hours. Because we were talking about time travel for a while.
It is a show about a girl who receives a letter from 10 years in the future. I can already hear Ash checking out.
Look, time travel is just, yeah.
Yup.
I'm not actually sure I necessarily want to watch any more of this show, but I'm happy but the discussion was great.
So, this week, I have been spending a lot of time in World of Warcraft with the Legion event, because it is, like I've said before, a really easy way to level characters. And it doesn't really matter how much you try and build in for, errors or things that players are going to do. Players will figure out a way to optimize the system and aka game it. And man, that's happening right now with this event.
It was good while it lasted, I guess.
Well, so it's almost over. Like, it'll be over on Tuesday, and I think at this point they've just thrown their hands up in the air and are just going to accept the fact that people are going to level the hell out of characters during this event. But it's gone so far to the point that apparently there's either a script or an add-on or something designed for XP grinding this event. And I actually encountered it earlier, where, like, someone will roll into a zone and they will say, we're doing an XP party. Do you want to join? Type 1 in general chat, and it'll throw out an invite. And then they have, like, a set order in which they kill the mobs in the zone. And there's a weird problem going on with this event. It's their new instancing technology for world events. And what it does is, when you zone into a zone, it tries to put you into a group. And it tries to favor a instance that's in phase 1. That way you get the majority of the event. And it may be the tail end of phase 1, but what they did not intend is there's a super easy way to have limitless experience generating mobs. And all it is you log out of the game and log back in, and it will drop you out of the phase that you were previously in and put you right back into phase 1. Now, you don't get any of the chests, like they did code around not duplicating the chests. So what these XP grinding parties are doing is going through doing phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and in phase 3 they're trying to maximize their experience by killing as many of the bosses as they can, and then they all meet up in town and drop the raid at exactly the same time and all log out at exactly the same time in the hopes that it puts them all back in together in the next instance. And they never actually complete the event. They just keep doing phase 1, 2, and 3 over and over and over for experience.
I feel like this is an oversight that at least they see and won't repeat. Because at least they've obviously coded in something to prevent you from getting
duplicate rewards, yeah,
from phases that you have already completed. But in this case, it's the XP from the mobs people are after, so it's not helping.
Right. And I can
they moved the rewards previously from... well, they moved the XP from the phases to the mobs. So This is a direct result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like back when you were getting your lion's share of experience from the phases, people were just AFKing and getting their 4 phases worth of experience for free. Now they're actually fighting, but they're doing this reset mechanism to get as many mobs as they want.
Because apparently you can't win.
Yeah, no, you can't win. My concern is that hopefully they'll figure out a way to deal with this in the future, because if there is an event where mobs give faction, I can absolutely see people creating the same thing for faction grinding parties and just having an endless supply of mobs. And that's the thing, is it's not, were they just grinding mobs, that's one thing, but like each one of these bosses is a fifth of a bar of experience per kill, maybe. So they have absolutely figured out a way to break the system.
So so if you complete the event, can you no longer do it?
You can't do it within it. So every 2 hours, they've actually sped this up significantly, but you can only do one zone in a 2 hour period. Like you can only do a zone once. So you can continue, like it takes enough time to go do the 6 zones that basically by the time you're done, they're resetting again. And you can do this endlessly. There's just a lot of travel time. So like the zones,
players hate travel.
Right. So in Eastern Kingdom, it's Hillsbrad and Dunmoreau and Westfall, and in Kalimdor, it's Azshara and Northern Barrens and Tanaris. So there's a significant amount of travel time between, especially down to Tanaris.
I've been playing FF14 so long, I've kind of forgotten what travel time is.
Travel time is a thing. But yeah, it's just, it cracked me up when I saw that today, that like, man, the level of organization that it took to not only write some kind of a script or an add-on or something for this purpose, and then to actually get players to, and they're going so far as to call, okay, we will be killing this boss next. Because apparently there's an optimal pattern someone has figured out that you kill this boss, this boss, this boss, this boss, and you can get...
It's actually less surprising to me.
I bet that there are some Final Fantasy XIV players who learned from the hunt system and are just porting that over directly.
Awfully related.
I would
Probably
not be surprised at all.
Well, because honestly, this event reminds me so much of Fates. Like, it really reminds me of Fates.
It's what the event generally reminds me of, yes.
But like, if there is a way to break an event wide open and exploit it for all its, caramel-covered goodness, players are going to do this. Like, that's just a thing. I don't know why they didn't think it was going to happen.
Well, could take a note from Fates, in that, for the most part, you have to actually do stuff in Fates to get any reward from them at all.
Well, they did that. They shifted the lion's share of experience to killing mobs.
Right, but even in Fates, your reward is at the end for completing it.
Yeah, you get the experience at the end. The
based
main
on how
chunk
much
of it.
You put in.
Yeah,
right.
If you don't kill any mobs, you're not getting anything.
I think there are some lessons learned there that they could take. I don't know if they will, but they could.
But yeah, I saw that this afternoon, and I thought I had to comment. Well, I didn't intend to comment tonight, but since we're not doing a game show, it was worth talking about. And another thing that's been in the news is yet another event from the history of MMOs that was quite often exploited: the Sleeper.
Quite often, or once exploited?
He has awakened.
Well, no, the entire article was about the fact that this one server exploited the fact that it hadn't been awoken yet.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't the only server to do it.
Ours did it too.
At all.
It was just really, really, really organized on it.
They took it to an extreme that most servers didn't.
Well, and this was the server that managed to actually kill the Sleeper. Like, I don't think any of the others did.
No, I was online when the sleeper awoken, and it was horrible. It just went from zone to zone, killing everyone.
Yeah.
And it was kind of boring because, there would be a message come across chat, and then some GM did a zone wipe.
Oh, so, the Sleeper didn't actually come and kill you?
No. I think the Sleeper did show up in zone, but it didn't really matter. You could be anywhere in zone, and when it arrived, you were dead.
Yeah, it was not as... It was similar to Deathwing flying around Cataclysm, but more just the entire zone dies. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Fewer particle effects, more text chat.
Yeah.
Instantly dying. Yeah,
Carafim would come into the zone and say something in chat, and then everyone was, dead and recovering their corpses.
Yeah. And of course, everybody was already angry because somebody woke the Sleeper, so that means they couldn't farm the awesome gear out of the tomb anymore.
Yeah, it was really interesting from an event standpoint because the Sleeper stayed alive for the longest on PvP servers, who could set up guards.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, who could more directly interfere with somebody trying to wake him. Yeah.
You're like, oh, you're going to try to wake the Sleeper? How about no?
Because that was that was what happened on a lot of the non-PvP servers was usually some guild, some third string guild that was, or just a single annoyed individual sometimes.
Yeah, basically somebody got angry because the rotation was, because somebody didn't obey, a raid boss rotation.
Or they just decided that they wanted to go, they were going to go, they decided that they wanted to go now, and so they're we can hold a gun to the head of everybody else.
Yeah.
Because if you don't let me go, I'm going to wake the Sleeper.
Yeah.
Well, and I know there were things you could do that would basically train mobs onto the person trying to do this thing, and maybe it would wipe them, maybe it wouldn't.
Yeah. But it wasn't easy to do, and you had to be
a monk or a shadow knight or somebody that could feign death and drop aggro.
You had to be really, really on the ball, and it wasn't an easy thing to do.
Well, and that was the weird part that nobody really talks about from this era was just how difficult it was to kill anything at all because you had to find it up. I remember it took us 2 or 3 weeks before we actually did a real run at Vox because, something would happen and she wouldn't be up, or, the stars had to align just perfectly to get everybody on in time to do this thing before somebody else took her down.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing, right? There was only, a server could only really support maybe 1 to 3 raiding guilds.
Well, so when you take down one of these bosses, most of them had a multi-day spawn cycle. Yeah. So, it would be 2-3 days before they were back up. And it was much like the stupid green dragons in World of Warcraft, where you had to have people that were spotters parked in that zone, and we had a monk that was literally, he was logged in feigned, and he would be sitting there waiting to hear... Yeah, I think Vox did some kind of a message periodically. So that was how we knew she was up versus she was dead. Or we would have a druid in zone or someone else with tracking. But even that was unreliable because the distance between the entry point and where Vox was, she may or may not show up on the list because there was a finite number of things that could be on a tracking list. And it was super easy for things deep into the zone to get pushed off the list. And then later people started using... God, I don't even remember what the name of it was, but there was some show EQ, It was a piece of software that you ran on a second machine that listened to the traffic from the game and would check to see if things were up. And a lot of people did that to figure out if things were up, which was totally against the terms of service, but it was a thing that a lot of guilds did to see if a boss that they needed for like the epic weapon progression was actually up without having to dig halfway into the zone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the tools to catch people were non-existent.
Well, and that thing was the weirdest thing. From what I understood, you had to have a non-switched hub that both the machine that was running ShowEQ and the machine that was running the client, and then like otherwise it couldn't listen to the traffic, or it was super sketchy.
Wow. That's sketchier than I realized.
No, it was super sketchy. Like there was a certain sequence of events that had to be in place or it wouldn't work at all. So people had to basically build a custom network just to run the stupid thing.
And they did.
Oh, they absolutely did, yeah. But that's the part that like we just take for granted. Like, we want to do a raid. Okay, can we get the people on? Let's go do a raid.
Yeah.
It's not, can we get the people on? Is anyone else in that zone? And I started off in Everquest on the same server as Fires of Heaven, and they would absolutely take zones away from people. Like, that was their thing. They laughed about it. So if you happened to be in a zone that they wanted, they would run through and, they could clear ahead of you faster than you could, and they would happily take whatever you wanted from you and laugh.
Yeah, I mean, I remember playing early WoW and people were like, Black Phoenix and Dark Paradigm are such dicks.
Yeah, they had nothing on Fires of Heaven.
But it was like in what way? Like, because they have cooler gear? Like there weren't that many things that they could actually do to harm your play experience, other than like be first to the occasional world boss, which they stopped bothering with pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like, no, if anything, they got really sick of us.
Yeah.
Because we were taking most of the green dragons.
Yeah, like we got to a point where we were where like other people were outcompeting them.
Well, so the problem is that they were like, they really needed that gear as soon as it came up. But our raiding group between Late Night Raiders and Last Horse and a couple of other groups were willing to work together and like just random roll for loots.
Yeah. Whereas they wanted to distribute it according to their loot system.
Yes. And they wanted to keep it, they wanted to like all of the drops to go to their raid. And so there were 3 bosses that were pretty, for that time, puggable. And so we just like, people were on in the middle of the day. We were able to amass a critical mass faster than they were and were able to swoop in and like get most of them. Which became a problem for them because those bosses were very important for doing Huhuran.
And we did Huhuran in some really silly gear, though. Like, we were farming Moradon for gear for Huhuran.
Everyone was farming Moradon for gear, but this was better stuff.
Well, right. The real gear you were supposed to use was off the Green Dragons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and they were super salty because half of the people that were pugging it weren't even running that content. But it was nothing like the ability for FOH to just roll into a zone and be like, this
destroy your evening. Like,
yeah, like you wanted to raid? No, actually, we want to raid this place.
And the number of times things happened where they were in a completely different zone and heard some other guild was in another zone, and they would pause their raid long enough to go over there, ruin the night of whoever this other guild was, and then go back to their raid.
Yeah. It's like the gross, terrible side of the whole shared spaces thing.
Yeah. I mean, I moved servers, and that's how I got away from it. And I happened to move to a server where there was a fairly obeyed order of things to where if you wanted to do something, you put your name on the list, and the other server, raiding guilds would make sure that no one screwed with you while you were doing this one thing.
Yeah. Well, it was a community.
Yeah, like it was a real community. And like a lot of the people didn't like each other, but they respected the need for some measure of order. Otherwise, you run into situations where there's a pissing contest like there was on Vashon.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
And there was only one person who got to piss.
Well, I mean, in a lot of other places, if you tried that, it wouldn't just go badly. It would go badly for everyone.
Well, and like Zogeny was a weird server. Like we got stuff like ordered.
Zogeny is how you pronounce that?
That's how I always pronounced it, Zogeny.
Huh.
What'd you say, Zigoni or
Zegony, like agony.
Zegony?
That's how I assumed it was pronounced.
Oh, I don't know. Like we all called it Zogeny.
Weird. All right. Well, there's a bit of random trivia from 15 years ago.
I don't know if, like, I have no clue what the correct pronunciation of the server was. Or the god that, you know, gave the server the name. Because it was like the god of life, I think.
It's pronounced oxygen.
I believe it.
Yeah, like, that's what we called it, and no one ever corrected us, so, you know.
I mean, it's not like anybody knew.
Like, yeah, nobody knows. It was just a name. There weren't, you know, there wasn't text, you know, speech in that game. I guess the correct thing would be to ask Brad McQuaid.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, maybe don't do that.
Don't do that.
How is the Pantheon going anyway?
I don't know. I occasionally watch the videos, and like there's a certain aspect of it that makes me nostalgic for that sort of a game, but just like Vanguard was EverQuest++, this is starting to look like Vanguard++.
Oh, thank you.
That's kind of what most people expected, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, and that's what the people that are backing it want. And I enjoyed Vanguard for what it was, but it wasn't a game I wanted to play a lot of. I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff going on in it, but mostly the stuff that interested me were the non-combat-y type systems. The diplomacy system I thought was cool. But anyway, that's ancient MMO history.
Was there voice chat? Was there like voiceover in EQ2? Because wouldn't that deity also be there?
There wasn't voiceover in EQ2.
Okay.
There was some quest dialogue, but it wasn't like, you know, the thing that bugged us about Wildstar where the character is actually saying something other than what the text is saying?
I feel like you are remembering much later than launch EQ2.
Oh yeah, no, this was like Plane of Sky, which was what, second expansion? That's when like there were the NPCs I think said something even at launch, but they weren't like it's not the text that they're saying. They say some canned phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely at least some voiceover work at launch, because I remember it being a big deal that they got this voice actor for the one faction, the dude in Kanos, and this voice actress for the other one. But as I recall, like there wasn't very much of it.
It wasn't universal by any means. It was like there were a few quests here and there that had some voice, but even when it was, the line that was being said did not match what the quest text actually was. So the character is saying something, but it's not what you're reading.
Yeah, I guess we probably have never heard anyone pronounce whatever that word is.
Xegony.
Zigoni.
Yeah. It's going to make me kind of want to look up a video to see how you actually pronounce this thing.
If anyone knows.
I'm sure someone has decided by now that this is the way you're supposed to pronounce this thing.
Maybe. There might not even be an official way.
I don't think this deity exists in EQ2. Like, there's a lot of the Pantheon that died, essentially, when Lucklin exploded, and I know Zogeny, however you want to say it, is not one of the patrons that you can take as a character.
Her current status is unknown.
Does that give any clues to how to pronounce it?
It does not. I did find a thread on the now Daybreak forums from 2006 asking how to pronounce it. People do not seem to be able to come to an agreement.
Yep.
Sounds about right.
We also just called it X Farm because lots and lots of people farmed content.
People also don't know how to pronounce Luclin or Luclin or whatever that is.
Oh, that one seems like I always just thought it was Luclin.
I feel like there's got to be an interview somewhere where someone said the title of the expansion.
Right, Shadows of Luclin. Like, it had to have been pronounced somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, Ralozek, Talonzek, and Sullenzek have all been pronounced, I believe. So those I know. I don't know. Like, there's some other ones that I'm not.
I guess it's however the community decides it's pronounced. And since you were on the Zogeny server, I'm pretty sure if your community decided it was Zogeny, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, and like there was no voice chat at that point, so.
Oh, so you're not sure?
Yeah. No, like there were a bunch of us that like all knew each other in person, and we all called it Zogeny.
Oh man!
But that is not a very large sample size.
No, it's not a large sample size. Like there were probably 25, 30 of us that lived in the Tulsa area.
Like I feel like this is like me and my friends in high school that I played D&D with, all mispronouncing Ravenloft as Ravenloft.
Ravenloft.
Dude, I had a friend in high school that would argue, would fight you because he, for whatever reason, thought it was Fizzylock.
What?
What?
Yep.
So that was mangled up. I cannot tell what you're trying to pronounce.
Fizzylock instead of Psylocke, the X-Men character.
Oh god.
Ah.
Yep.
Wow.
People do some weird shit. He said he just liked it better that way.
I will admit to
Okay.
I will admit to pronouncing it telekinetics instead of telekinesis for a while.
Well, telekinetics and telekinesis are two different things. I mean, like, they're two different words.
I don't know. I kind of like that, using the power of telekinetics to move things. That works.
Like, that seems reasonable. But those are, like, both words, so sure.
I'm not actually okay. You're gonna need to clarify that one for me, because I'm not entirely sure how telekinetics and telekinesis are different things.
No, they're two different
I don't
words.
think they're different things. They're just different words.
Right, they're two different words. They're two actual words.
Yes.
And like they mean the same thing.
One is they're just different forms of the same word. If you have telekinesis, you are telekinetic.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, but telekinetics is not a word.
So
it is
a
now.
group of people who
are
have access
yes.
to telekinesis are telekinetics.
Okay, fair.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were saying, like, instead of telekinesis,
No, as
you
a
were
noun.
using telekinetics.
Yeah, as the noun form, as the singular noun form. For the power, not the user of the power.
So what we're saying is that Fizzylock uses the focused totality of her telekinetics.
All right. And with that,
Yeah, I think that's as far down this rabbit hole as we could possibly go. Do we have anything else of substance to talk about before we go?
no.
Substance? What?
We're going to pretend some of what we said was of substance.
If you say so.
Anyway, so hopefully you enjoyed the show, because, like, on the scale of 1 to not prepared at all, we're on the furthest end of not prepared at all, because we thought we were going to do a different show than we did tonight, but...
Look, so we've had shows where you started recording before we knew what we were talking about.
It's true.
We did at least.
We're not
like,
even. This is like average for us. Maybe a little
This is
bit.
like a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe even a 4. We've had shows where we just get like one topic and we're like, all right, well, we're just gonna run with it.
Yeah. But hopefully folks enjoyed the show, and at some point we promise we will record the Game of the Month show for The Witness. And remember that Tales of Maj'eyal is the September game.
That's MAJ''EYAL. Pronounce that however you feel like. Although,
Yeah.
that may have an official pronunciation.
Tales of Maj'eyal.
I will pronounce it
Tales of
Middle
Middle Earth.
Ash's September game. What's easier? Anyway, good night.
Good night.
See ya.
Good night.
Good night.